Wait.
I want you to know you would have never gotten an applause if I hadn't.
I know.
Just
I appreciate it. Oh, yeah. All
Take
right.
it away.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pitts, everybody. I must be moving up in the world a little bit because I just had a state senator open for me, so that feels pretty good. And I'm going to start from the beginning because I recognize a lot of faces here, which is nice, but there's a lot of newbies, so I'm going to start at the beginning. So I'm sorry if it bores the people who've heard it before. But my name is Mike Imbassiani. I'm 26. I'm mainly a professional musician. That's been my job since I was 11 years old. Been playing guitar since I was 5. Now, I'll get to what Freedom Cow is here in a minute because it goes back to Hurricane Ian as well. But talking about my past and how I got into politics is important. I mean, I was homeschooled my entire academic life. Never spent a day in public school, and I'm proud of that fact. You have good kids like Leonardo here that's putting up the fight in public school and started the Republican Club in Charlotte High School there, and that's important. Because you have to take it to them as well, and that goes to one of the points I'm going to get to, which is you can start your own things, you can do the truth socials, you can get off of Facebook, but at the end of the day, everybody else is still on Facebook. So if you end up putting yourself into that echo chamber, you still have to get the word out to everybody else. And that's going to tie into my get loud locally idea. And I thought last night, I have my notes that I've had for the last 3 times that I've spoken here. And I thought of something last night as I was lying in bed at 11:30 at night going, what am I going to talk about? And that is, what is your line in the sand? That's going to be the overarching thought I want you to think about as I speak today. What is your personal line in the sand? Because no matter what, everybody has their own. The state senator was talking about the Tea Party movement. That was a line in the sand for a lot of people. And we were successful, weren't we? What was it named after? The Tea Party, which was what? The Boston Tea Party, which was what? Their line in the sand. We're coming up to another one of those moments if we haven't already passed it. But when you see individual people, one person at a time coming up with their line in the sand, they get martyred out. They get, don't be like that guy, you're going to get in trouble because it's one person standing up. It takes entire communities to stand up for what is right because we all have the same line in the sand. It's just what are we going to do about it? And that means getting loud locally. So, as I said, I'm a musician, professional musician. I play blues, classic rock, fun music from the good old days. None of this modern crap that you have today. And and I started at a very young age. I've been playing in bars and restaurants since I was 11, and I've been around society. I mean, that was always the question, right? Well, homeschooled kids, can they socialize? They're the weird ones out there. But I found that I was able to socialize a lot better than my counterparts who spent 8 hours a day in public school because all my friends were older people. And you learn a lot more from people who have actually been around for a lot longer than your peers that are going through it at the same time as you. Even to this day, most of my best friends are in their early 70s, and I've learned so much from them that helps me who I am today. And I didn't go to college. I went straight into more music, and I was a Rush baby. I still wear them to this day. The first time I spoke at the curmudgeon meeting there, that was my first speaking engagement. I wore one of my Rush ties, and when I was younger, because my dad's a lawyer, he has a bunch of the old Rush Limbaugh ties from when he had his TV show, and that was always. I always brought politics into my entertainment in a smart way. I'm not, the Dixie Chicks. You see how well that worked out for them. Or now Garth Brooks, crying off stage. You have to do it in a smart way. I have a bunch of stickers on all of my music gear boxes, and one of them is a picture of a burning Waco that says, "They're not coming for your guns." It's subtle. People who know, and people who don't, they'll figure it out eventually. Same thing with the Rush Limbaugh ties. It was always great because they look like Jerry Garcia ties, right? So you'd get these hippies, the liberal hippies out there that would come up to me and say, "Oh, I love your tie so much. Is that a Jerry Garcia tie?" Big smile on their face. And I say, "No, it's a Rush Limbaugh tie." And you just see their whole face change. Because that's identity politics. It's only they love it until they actually know what it is. And so I was always surrounded by politics. I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh, but of course the memory receptors in my young brain didn't start really paying attention until the first Obama race, which was, McCain and Palin and Obama. And, didn't pay much attention to it. I thought, okay, cool, Sarah Palin, vice president. I like her, she's pretty. But, it didn't go the Republicans' way. And of course, then you had good old Mitt Romney the second time around, and that didn't go that well either. But now, where we are, you can look back at those elections and realize why it didn't go well. Remember when we all said, why isn't Paul Ryan wiping the floor with Joe Biden in that VP debate? Remember that? Well, that's because they're buddies. And where's Paul Ryan now? Nobody wrote his book and he rode off into the sunset. And that's because they were all part of the big club. And we ain't in it. And so it was just another shoe-in. Obama won his second term. And then what was supposed to happen? Hillary Clinton, it was her turn, right? It wasn't going to be Joe. Nobody liked Joe then. He was the placeholder. So it was Hillary's turn. She was going to take over and finish what Obama started. But people woke up. They hit their line in the sand of not wanting to take it anymore. And there came Donald Trump down the golden escalator and said a lot of fun things. But it's the arrogance. The state senator was talking about, why the Democrats lost before, and they eat their own. They do eat their own. But what killed them in 2016 was their own narcissism and arrogance. Because they said, how could anybody vote for this guy? Because he's amazing. But, and so, yes, they cheated. There were obvious areas that you could see that they cheated in, but they didn't think they had to do that much. Because they thought, everybody out there's stupid. It's true. They are the elites. They think they know better than you, and they said, we got it in the bag. Nobody's going to vote for that guy. And they were shocked. Always. I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning that election night watching it. It was the best thing on TV. And the speech at 3 o'clock in the morning, what as he came out? I know it's been a little while, but, we had to take some time, and, we've done it. and it was great. And what happened? Gas went down. And I love it the other day. We just can't get back to those lower gas prices. Well, if you open the pipelines, it's like that. But no matter what, for 4 years, all they did was go after him. For 4 years. And think about all that he's still accomplished in 4 years. And they had to come up with something to say, look, the economy sucks and it's under Trump. So what did they do? COVID. I used to joke, tying back into my profession, what I actually get paid doing. And I used to joke, times are good, people are happy, they go out and drink. Times are bad, people are sad, they go out to drink. I will always have a job because the bars will always be there. Until the government came out and said, hey, you're non-essential. And I was like, but I have bills. Really? They told a majority of the population, you are non-essential. We'll give you money from the government, which means it came from you anyway. But they told me and a bunch of people, you are non-essential. And so Florida shut down, the rest of the country shut down, the rest of the world shut down. And so I love it when people say, to this day, they'll say, government doesn't affect me. Really? You pay for gas in your car, you pay for electric, you got to do all these things. My buddy even goes, those Giza dream sheets that you sleep on with your My slippers. on your My Pillow has all been approved by the government. Fire retardant. I have to give that to my buddy Mason Weaver, who gave me that good line. But it's true. Everything, these are nice Duluth Trading Company pants. I'm sure they had to get approved by the government as well, because there's a million, the FDA, all these people who think they run your lives. And so, therefore, I was non-essential. Thank God we're in Florida, because everything got canceled on March 15th, 2020. Everything, poof, gone. 2019, I had a record 227 gigs. It jumped up. I had 180 the year before, so 227 was huge for me. And I was going into 2020 with over 200 gigs booked at the time. March, right before St. Patrick's Day, too. Can't tell me that wasn't on purpose. Boom, everything canceled. I'm sure everybody in Chicago was very sad they didn't get to see the River Green that year. I know, they were shooting in the streets for it. But we were in Florida. So May 5th was my first gig back. I had friends, and so it came back May 5th, and it was slow, maybe 1 gig a week, 2 gigs a week, maybe, and then none, and then 1, and then 2, and then none. It didn't get back to I had gigs every weekend until October of 2020. During the time of COVID, I started a podcast called The Chronicles, where I talked to my other musician friends. We were all off for the first time in a very long time, so we had time to talk to each other. What are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? Nothing. I started a coffee company. That's how bored I was. But in Florida, we got back to work sooner because we're in the great state of Florida. I will applaud Ron DeSantis. He did the right thing of opening our state. Yeah. And I would talk to my friends in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in all these other states. What are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? I'm back to work. I'm in Florida. Oh, but aren't you worried about all the... No. No, I'm not. At all. I need the work. People out there need the work. It was worse when they came back, 25% capacity. Restaurants don't know how to function at that level because you're still turning on all the lights. How much food do you order? And you're saying you're going to keep on all your staff, but only 5 of you are going to work at a time. That crippled more businesses than ever. But what was the overarching problem with COVID and the lockdowns? It killed small businesses, which are who? Free thinkers. Because they're not employees for some corporation. They said, I have an idea. I'm going to get my own brick and mortar store. I'm probably going to work on it myself because nobody else wants to do that work, especially in Florida. And they're going to create their own business. And what happened with the lockdowns? Walmart stayed open. Everybody loves to say the liquor store stayed open. The small businesses, the ones who have a reserve, especially restaurants, I hear it every year, there's season and off season. And all the money they make in season tends to hold them over in off season. Now, I have my own issues with that because off season, there's enough people who live here year round, you can still pack these places. And that's where getting loud locally also means help and support your own small local businesses because they need it now more than ever, even 3 years after COVID, because during the lockdowns, they had to go through the reserves that they would have made because March, St. Patrick's Day, that's still the hardest season. All that money they lost and then still couldn't make in the off season until they finally were able to reopen. And so you saw all the businesses close during that time. But then they died the slow COVID death, long COVID, because they just didn't have the reserves to make it the 3 years now later, because the economy has still just continued to go down. So that ties into, what's your line in the sand? Who do you support? Nobody's buying Bud Light anymore. That worked. But it works because on the Bud Light front, it's in the stocks, right? It's, okay, you see the sales declining 30% consistently. Even after Memorial Day, it was still down billions of dollars, and in their stock. But when the stock first went down, you had, I'm sure the financial guys out there saying, oh, just hold on to it. These boycotts, they don't work. Just hold on to it because it'll go back up. Don't worry about it. These boycotts never last. And then it went down further. Here comes Target. And the same people who held on to their bud stock for it to only go down more said, oh no, I see where this is going, I'm out now. And that's why Target fell faster than Bud Light did. Because look at the stock market. Look at the people who are behind it. They weren't going to put up with it. And now you're seeing Starbucks pulled all their Pride stuff the second that there was any backlash. People have a voice. We need to stop being called the silent majority. We are the majority for a reason. And I say, what is your line in the sand, too, because has anybody seen the videos just of the past 3 days, this past weekend, of what happened in New York, Seattle, and Toronto? Naked people. And Washington as well. The White House as well, yeah. That's old news by now. but that was an event. Right, that's an event at the White House of, the transgenders there in front of the White House. And I love when they show the video with Biden's tweet in the election time in 2020. It is time to bring back decency to the White House. That's their definition of decency. But this past weekend, the Pride festivals and parades that happened, the literal naked people in the fountains in New York City there, in Seattle, in front of children. What is your line in the sand, folks, to say, I'm not going to say I don't need to support this. Not only is it no longer I'm not going to support this, but I'm going to stand up and say, nobody should support this. You want to do what you want to do in your own home. I don't care. But this is a public place of decency. It's supposed to be. And they just continue to throw it in your face to say, what are you going to do about it? And the bigger picture is, in politics, everything is connected. You don't realize how important a presidential cabinet is until they suck at their job. Look at Pete Buttigieg. We shouldn't care about what the Department of Transportation is doing. But you care when you see all these train derailments and toxic materials going into the water system. You notice they just stopped talking about it after a while, but it's still happening. There was just another one in Yellowstone. A bridge collapsed and the train went into the river there. And they go, well, we're not sure if it had hazardous materials on it, but don't drink the water. Okay, where's Pete? Where's good old Mayor Pete? Same thing with who takes care of disposing of nuclear waste. Would you think it was a guy who likes to dress up as a woman and steal other people's luggage? You wouldn't think it, but that's who Biden put in there and who has been arrested for such, which, thank God, they at least did that, but only because he got caught. And I love it because it was the lady who had all her custom-made jewelry and dresses and stuff, and she was watching TV and goes, hey, that's my stuff. I know because I made it. And then you have the FDA and talking about, you'll eat bugs and you'll like it. For years, you'd go to Universal or whatever, you come off the mummy ride and you're in the, it's supposed to be the fancy little Egyptian area. It's cool. And they sell little boxes of, chocolate covered crickets, and it's a joke. But to these people, it's not a joke. And really, that's what I recently heard could be considered a limited hangout. And that's a thing, I grew up playing certain video games, Call of Duty, pew pew, fun stuff like that. And there are certain storylines in these video games, in TV shows, and in movies that you'd go, okay, that's pretty far-fetched. I'd never think anything like that would happen. And then 5 years later, there it is. But you don't think about it as being this huge thing because your subconscious already saw it in that movie, in that TV show, in that video game. Remember that show? Has anybody ever seen that show, Person of Interest? Yeah, Jim Caviezel, who's going to be in that new Sounds of Freedom movie. Everybody says, oh, he was in Passion of the Christ. He was also in this show called Person of Interest that ran only for a couple of seasons. But it was about, they're watching you. They're always watching you. There was a video game called Watch Dogs that came out at the same time. This guy with his cell phone could hack into every little thing and control everything. You could kill a guy by triggering his pacemaker. Because everything is computerized. And you can't tell me they have those ideas for shows, video games, and movies that somebody hasn't already thought about it 5 years ago in the government. So it's stuff like that. It's the big picture. It's the limited hangout of, okay, those cute little chocolate-covered crickets at a gift shop. Now, the World Economic Forum is saying, well, we can use cricket powder in Lay's potato chips. We can use cricket powder in this. It's a protein, it's good for you. Well, they fast-tracked it so much that they didn't do the proper allergy testing, and certain people who are allergic to shellfish are allergic to crickets. And they're finding out the hard way because they don't put the warning on any of the information because they don't want you to know that it's in there in the first place. What's that?
It's not required by law.
Right, it's not required by law. Why? What? And so who makes the law?
Is this the bioengineered ingredients?
Yeah, bioengineered ingredients. Well, and just crickets in general. They use crickets because they go, well, it's cheaper, for one. They can grow them in a lab. And it takes up less room than chickens. And so what did you say? What did you see? The FDA all of a sudden is saying, there's this chicken illness that's going around, and we just so happen to have to kill 10,000 chickens. Oh, why? Oh, well, there's this mystery disease, so we have to do it. And around the same time, all of a sudden, all these chicken factories are being burned to the ground. What is your line in the sand? You listen to those things. Who do you talk to? I gave you a sheet here that has all the Charlotte County commissioners, the Charlotte County supervisors elections, the Charlotte County state senator. I was like, hey, that guy's on my piece of paper. The Charlotte County state representative, you have Florida governor, and the biggest conversation, I'll talk about good old Ronnie for a second. They changed the rules in Tallahassee so that he didn't have to leave the governorship to run for president. Power. You can't tell me that during that debate against Charlene Christ there, that he didn't already know he was going to run for president. We love Ron DeSantis here in Florida. He's done a great job as governor, but he needs to stay the governor of Florida. And the biggest conversation, and on my podcast, The Freedom Chronicles, which I'll get to in a couple minutes here, I interviewed a guy who has more social media clout than me, more political clout than me. He does a lot of big interviews and a lot of conversations and goes to a lot of cool meetings. And I said, I wasn't even posing the question to him. I was talking to the camera, and I said, tell me, to my theoretical audience listening, who is the lieutenant governor of Florida, and what do you know about them? Do you know if it's a man or a woman, even? And if so, what's their name? And he came back and he goes, what is it? And I said, it's Jeanette Nunes. Nobody knew that. And nobody understood, well, if that law doesn't get passed, which of course it was going to get passed anyway, but if it didn't, and DeSantis went and ran for president and had to leave being governor, we would be stuck with somebody that we knew nothing about. What's her name? What does she do? What are her policies? We didn't vote for her. We voted for Ron. And it's unfortunate. You are the company you keep. You are the company you keep. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Who is Ron hanging around with? All the people giving him money. He did an event where it was $1,000 a plate or something, which I'd much rather eat lunch here. Thank you very much. Okay, fine. You cannot control who gives you money. Okay, fine. You could eventually give it back if you don't believe in what they believe in. Say, I don't need your money because it is not the kind of money I want to take, because then you're going to want something. But it's worse when not only are you taking their money, but you're doing an event with them. Because that's not just taking their money. That's saying, I'm sitting next to this guy who just gave me money, who has ties to Moderna. Yeah. And that was the event Ron just did in Washington, D.C. the other day. So we love Ron as Florida governor. He needs to stay as Florida governor. He needs to term out. And it's a shame. What is happening is the infighting in the Republican Party. That's what I have the biggest problem with. Because you get nothing done. You have club versus club. Because, I want to pull people into my club. I don't like the leadership of this club. Well, get over it. Fight for the bigger picture. Because that's all the Democrats do. Yes, they eat their own. But when push comes to shove, the person in the Democrat Party who is causing the big stink will still vote the way the party wants them to. And that's what the Republicans need to understand. Everybody needs to get behind the person leading the polls leaps and bounds. Because it needs to be scorched earth, Schedule F. When Trump first got in, he didn't know who to trust because he wasn't a politician. He was a businessman. And in business, you go in, you go, okay, show me what you got. If you suck, you're fired. But unfortunately, you cannot just fire the head of these departments. Because, just like in Congress, the Mitch McConnells, the Lindsey Grahams, all the usual people that have been there for 30 plus years, even the Marco Rubios. Remember, he was part of that good old Gang of 8 back not that long ago. Oh, yeah. These people who have been in there for so long, they go, I don't care who the president is, because we control them. So that's, again, what's your line in the sand? Who are you going to put up to get involved? And so it was the same thing in these 3-letter agencies. You had the director. How many FBI directors did Trump fire and rehire and bring back and do this and do that and promote from within? It was the middle managers of these places that have been there for 30 plus years that didn't want to help Trump. They slow-walked stuff. So as great as Trump was with what he got done, there were so many things that didn't happen because they were sabotaged from the inside. And I'll admit, I have my own problems with Trump. He should not be pushing the vaccine as hard as he still does. Because it's his pride. Because at the end of the day, it's still Donald Trump. I have shirts back there with Trump dressed as the revolutionary guy, and it says, "Perhaps you recognize me, it's your favorite president." And yes, we love you, Donnie, but we have the problems with you too. But think about, again, look at the bigger picture. Think about what he had to deal with COVID and bringing in the vaccine. Operation Warp Speed. It's a military operation we're going to push through. Why did they brand it that way? Because he loves the military. He respects the military above everything. So they used that against him and said, well, we're gonna get it out fast. We're going to get it out effective. It's going to be fantastic. And yeah, they did that, but they shouldn't have done that. Because it's like the good old, I'm a Star Wars fan. I grew up watching Star Wars, and I love the political aspects of Star Wars that nobody else ever looks at. It's create the problem and offer the solution. And that's what the government has continuously done, time and time and time again. Create the problem, offer the solution. So it was with COVID. It's going to be with whatever, great new thing they come out with next. Now to Freedom Cow. It's my mascot for the Freedom Chronicles. After Hurricane Ian, I have some property out in Arcadia, about 7 acres. And, my family and I said, well, okay, we have to go out and check out the property, see what's going on, make sure it's okay. A lot of trees down. This was already maybe a week or two after the storm was gone because we just couldn't get out of there. It was already 6 days with no power at home. We weren't going out to Arcadia with nothing. And we go out there, we're walking around the property. There's still so much water everywhere. I mean, there was a record flooding out there of 24 feet when the previous record was 18 feet. So, the 100-year flood was 18 feet. Well, I guess this is the 500-year flood, which totally won't happen again this year. The 1,000-year flood, right? And so we go out there and we're walking around, and I hear something in the woods there. Like, is somebody on my property? What's going on? All my fence was still intact. We're just walking through. There was a couch that came from a neighbor. And I'm looking through the woods, and I hear like plopping through the water. And I'm like, who's on my property? It was this guy. And I found out that when you go out and you take Kings Highway out to Arcadia, you go right to go to downtown area. You go left, goes towards my property, and you go over Horse Creek. And when you're on that road, everything to the right is all cattle land. It's like some 6,000 acres or whatever. It would seem that this cow came from that land, swam over my fence, and lived because he found my house pad that was just barely above where the flood level was, and he lived. She, he, whatever, they. And it had a tag on it. We called the sheriff's department. They came down. They found it. They go, one of the sheriff deputies, he goes, that's my dad's cow. And it was his dad who was the manager of that ranch. And so he came and they go, thank God you found this cow. They had been turning up dead everywhere because there were 100 that were missing, 50 babies and 50 adults. They were meant to be sent out to Texas the day of the hurricane. And they've been turning up dead everywhere. They were so happy they found this one alive. And after they, wrangled little Freedom Cow here, they found 3 more alive in the neighboring woods around my property. And so to me, it became the mascot for my podcast because it showed the perseverance. This poor little guy, he doesn't know what's going on. Water's getting higher and higher and, winds and God knows what was happening out there in Arcadia. But he found a way to survive. And then that comes to my Get Loud Locally. And I started the Freedom Chronicles. I've been going on with Ken Lovejoy on Charlotte County Speaks every Thursday for like the past 8 years. And it started out as, he's been bringing me up on stages since I was 12. So he loves blues music, and so I would go on there and I'd plug my gigs, and then that turned into, okay, you come on the show, you plug your gigs, bring the bumper music for the show. So okay, I bring the bumper music for the show with some music facts I can talk about. And then it was, okay, you're doing that, bring a story that you can talk about. Okay, so I look through the news and find a story that I'd want to talk about. And then, we have our fun little bantering that we do on the show every Thursday. And then it got to the point where I was saying, I want to do something more. Radio's fun, I plug my gigs, but you can only talk about so much in 2 hours on the radio. And you can only reach a certain audience. There are people, he just had a listener call in who was listening in Iowa live. And that's the app for you, the internet, power of the internet. But I wanted something that could reach more people, that was video, so it hold people's attention a little better than the radio that you could listen to in the background. And I wanted to interview people that had more to say than just me. And I wanted my millennial approach and Ken's, older approach. And so I started the Freedom Chronicles, and one of the first guests that I had on was General Flynn's brother, Joseph Flynn. And he said this, just in passing, get loud locally. And that really was a great statement. And we continued to use it on the show, no matter who I was talking to, whether it was just me and Ken or any guest we had on. It was always get loud locally, because one person cannot change the world, but they can change the area that they're in. They can change their community. They can help their friends and their family. Because that's what needs to get done. It starts on the local level. Because I'll tell you, folks, there's already one. We do a segment called Patriot and Traitor of the Week, and right after we did our midterm extravaganza, right? Huge red wave was going to happen, right? Huge, wonderful, huge. It's going to be huge, and it was a red puddle. Why? Because people didn't do anything. Even Lovejoy would read on the radio how many Republicans stayed home. Because why? They go, we got it. It'll be fine. Same thing happened in 2020. Trump won once. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Well, they cheat. So you have to account for the cheating, which means everybody has to show up, no matter what. And I don't care what you say. Yes, there was cheating in these state elections in Michigan, or Michiganistan, as some like to say, or Pennsylvania, or New York. But I also know people that voted for Fetterlump there because they're just in la-la land. Because how do you look at that guy standing next to Biden and you go, man, at least Biden can finish a sentence. Because Fetterman, I like trains. And I don't like. That guy's a senator. And so I said, my traitor of the week at the time was all the people in these states, Michigan, New York, California, Pennsylvania, that didn't vote or didn't at least say to somebody else, how could you vote for this guy? A literal moron. Yes, it's horrible. He had a stroke. Gee, I wonder why. And he needs the help, just like the whole issue with the transgender thing. They need the help that they need, not the help that they want. So somebody like Fetterman needs the help that he needs. He doesn't need to be on a podium trying to make a speech in front of people that, he doesn't even know what he's saying. But I said the traitor was the people who still voted for him because they went through everything from COVID to their businesses being shut down, to not being able to see their loved ones, to losing their jobs, and they still voted for these people. Losing their loved ones. What's that?
Who was his opponent?
Dr. Oz there. Yeah, well,
Intelligent person.
somebody who could make a sentence. Because at the end of the day, it does come down to lesser of two evils. If you let it get that far, they let it get that far. Again, Trump probably should not have endorsed Oz, but it was the friend connection. Again, pride got in the way. But that means people need to put up better primary opponents. It's important. And that's what I mean when I say get loud locally as well. It's look around. Who's running? Leonardo here is running for school board. It takes people getting involved. Hopefully you win. If he doesn't, it's getting the word out. It's saying, I'm at least trying to do something. My job is I have a fun little podcast where I make you laugh. I tell you about stories you might not know about. I interview interesting people that have more to say than I do, and I get the word out there. But then it's up to everybody else, whoever's listening, to go get the word out more. And that's the same thing with clubs. Clubs are nice. It's nice to have the camaraderie with everybody, meet together, listen to speakers, and do that. But everybody in here feels the same way, I'm pretty sure. It's about getting in front of the people that don't think the same way. And, I spoke at Leonardo's club at Charlotte High School, and I said, look, you go down these hallways every day. You go through life every day, go to Publix, you go to Winn-Dixie, you go here, there, and everywhere. And you pass people that, as they're looking at their receipt walking out the door, are mumbling under their breath. Flag wavings are nice. They're on the side of the road, and people are going by 40 miles an hour. Somebody will give you the finger, or somebody will honk the horn, in support. You can't have a conversation with them. You can have a conversation with people as they're walking out of Publix going, man, I had to pay how much for eggs? And you have to ask the why questions, not just, well, you're wrong for what you believe in. Ha, see? Ha, you have to pay that much of eggs. Why? Thanks, Joe Biden. No, make them think. Ask them, well, why do you think eggs are so expensive right now? Could it be that, well, 10,000 chickens were killed and the FDA is regulating all this and all the places keep burning down, and they go, what? Because they have no idea that it's happening. So people have to get out of the echo chambers, get out in the real world, and just talk to people. You know, that's why I have a shirt like this. You go, hey, that's a cute cow. What's that all about? You know, some of you did that today. You go, why is there a cow on a T-shirt? There's a reason. You know, Michael's got, you know, Frederick Douglass and everything they're doing. It's important. You have to understand history. And the reason I have the shirts that I have today is because I have a few other shirts that are available online. One of them is a Ronald Reagan shirt that says, evil is powerless if the good are unafraid, which is the same idea as get loud locally. People have to stand up in the face of evil and say, no, I'm not going to take it from you anymore. And I have two JFK ones. Now, JFK was a Democrat, right? And I have one that has his face on it that says, I will splinter the CIA into 1,000,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind, you know. And then I have another one that says, if not us, who? If not now, when? Simple questions. Because if we aren't willing to do anything, at what point are we? You have to stand up, folks. So and then I have the Freedom Cow one online. Now, I had the other three that I have over there online, and one of my friends I know bought a couple. One of them is the Trump one. It's your favorite president. One of them says, Super, Supreme, Ultra, Mega, MAGA. No picture, just the words. And then one is from one of my favorite movies, Kelly's Heroes, with Clint Eastwood, and it has Oddball, who was Donald Sutherland's character, saying, when we go into battle, we play music really loud. I used that soundbite in my intro to the Freedom Chronicles. Well, after my friend bought one of the Super Supreme Ultra Mega MAGA shirts and one of the Trump, a couple stickers and all that, her order went through. They took her money, and I'm going to get my cut. And then they rejected those three designs. What? The favorite president one, the Ultra Mega MAGA one, and the Trump one.
What do you mean rejected?
Meaning they're not on the site anymore. Nobody can buy them.
Wow.
Right. Now, some may say copyright. I don't believe that. Because why then is the JFK quote still up and the Ronald Reagan quote still up? And the Super Supreme Ultra Mega MAGA has, it's not a quote, it's just a phrase. Nobody owns it. Strictly political. But they took their money, didn't they? They let that one order go through. And then they say, oh, by the way, rejected. The other four are still up just fine. The Reagan, the two JFKs, and the Freedom Cow. That is how they try to get you. They can't take down my whole site, because then I could fight back and say, oh, you can't do that, it's free speech. You can't tell me every single one of these designs, goes against community standards. So instead, they pick. They just pick at you, little by little. And that's what they try to do. The government tries to do that on the grand scheme of things. They just pick at you, little by little. Okay, we're going to have pride parades now. Okay, it's been going on for a decade. Nobody really cared, But now it's, we're coming for your children. What they did, there was that music video. A year ago, 2 years ago, I don't remember. A bunch of, thespians. Shocking. All did that video, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids. And everybody tried to say, oh, that's, they're just joking. Now look at New York City. When it's a planned thing, when they're marching down the street half naked, and in some cases fully naked, screaming the same thing, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids. So folks, what is your line in the sand? You're going to put up with that? No. You're going to put up with somebody topless, It's a dude, by the way, so I mean, still, I don't know why he was covering up. But you going to put up with that at the White House? No. No, we don't want to. So then it comes to, what are you going to do about it? Get the word out. Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your enemies, the people that don't like you. Say, show it to them. Say, are you really okay with this? You know, you say you're for gay rights. Okay, fine. Whatever. Are you okay with this? No. Because unless you have the evidence, and that's what even Twitter still tries to do. They try to pull it off. Facebook won't show it. YouTube will say, you can't say the words, and I'm filming this so I can't say them right now either because I want to put it on YouTube. But, you know, the horse tranquilizer, we'll say it that way, that they tried to say was ineffective, that has been around for years treating malaria, and that's why maybe Africa didn't have such a big problem with COVID. You can't say those two words. I had a video that got taken down because I was medical misinformation. Now it's okay. You can talk about how there was cheating in the election. You can talk about that on YouTube now. What about all the videos that got taken down already? They're going to put those back up? They're going to give them back pay for all the monetization that they lost? No. But now it's okay. Rules for thee, not for me. It's that mentality. That's how the government sees all of you. You know, David is doing it the right way of what I'm talking about with the election of you have these people constantly just all the infighting in the Republicans. Have to focus on the bigger picture, which is election integrity. David's got it right. You have to focus on election integrity. What's going on with the machines? What's going on with the ballot harvesting, not in Florida, but in other states? Turning Point USA just gave Scott Pressler $5 million to go fight the voter battle in Wisconsin or Michigan, one of those states. $5 million. Good. That's how you fight. You fight by going there and taking care of it. We have our own problems here. We have to keep DeSantis in, first of all, as governor. But you have to pay attention to what's going on. And they'll try it. January 6th, everything that happened with that. I just recently saw an interview. I recommend everybody check it out. A big person I enjoy listening to is Tim Pool. And he interviewed the man who was recently acquitted for the hoax that was the alleged kidnapping of Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. And he was fully acquitted because they had no case. And it just shows you how stupid the feds and the FBI and the government is, because their whole thing, their whole plot was to get the, radical right to drive past the governor's house, right? That was going to be their big nugget of information that they got him with that. So they go ahead.
Or they'll force you into court, hire lawyers, and put you in debt.
Right.
That's part of it too.
That is part of it. They'll put you in debt. They want you to, they'll say, well, people can't afford to fight it, so they'll just plea out. And I'll get to that good point in a second. But the feds, there were infiltrators. They were all feds. It was all one big, hoax. They got this guy, I believe it was Brendan or Brandon, in the car, and the Fed at home sent him the address that they were supposed to drive by Whitmer's house. So there's another Fed driving the van. The one Fed back at base who texted the Fed driving the van sent him the wrong address. It was off by one number. The entire FBI case that they wanted to put up with this nice golden nugget of proof got messed up because they're morons. They messed it up by one number, the address. And the case fell apart. They had nothing. But what did they get? They got two guys to plea out. And it was, of course, as he said, it was the two guys who were the most rah-rah. Oh yeah, if the government tries anything, we're gonna, we're this, we're that, we're badass dudes. They caved immediately because they're threatened. Because the government is a big, tall, towering intimidation tool. And it's the same thing with January 6th. I interviewed Scott Weinberg 2 weeks ago. And I listened to the interview that Tim Pool did after that, and listening to the similarities of what the government tries to do, holding back discovery, doing all these things, just the intimidation of just plea out, No, maybe no jail time, just plea out. No, because that's how they get you. If you're not willing to stand up, because if one person stands up, they martyr him out, like I started off saying. They martyr him out because it's just one guy. When everybody stands up, they can't get everybody. And the truth comes out. So I asked people, I gave everybody one of these sheets with the Freedom Chronicles on it. Watch it, check it out. We try to be funny. We try to offer, there's also a little music in there. And we try to get the information that not many people hear. Take it to your local leaders. The other paper I gave you has all the information of everybody else on it. Use it. Contact these people. Say, what are you doing in office to help forward the conservative cause? It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's good versus evil. People need to stand up. Get loud locally. I have a couple shirts back there. Check it out, the podcast on Rumble, YouTube. We also have a community you can join that has a few other exclusive things. So thank you, everybody. My name is Mike Imbassiani. And keep up the good fight. Cool.